Welcome to Grandma's Verdict, and we invite you to watch a video with our new original story. Every last Friday of the month, the men at the co-op got paid. It was a tradition. And another tradition was the wives crowding the pay office to intercept the money. Of course, they couldn't get all of it, but the better part of it was always hard-won. After the loud and boisterous confiscation of the money, the wives would rush home to prepare for their husband's return. And this preparation had to be serious. First, clear the path of anything a husband might trip over. Second, make the bed so he could collapse right into it. The bedding had to be the old stuff because the men usually fell into bed fully clothed, boots and all. And all sharp objects had to be hidden away. The children were reminded not to show their faces. And that was basically it. And most importantly, they had to arm themselves with patience, so as not to say something in the heat of the moment. In the evenings, the women would gather on the logs outside Natalie's house. They would bring sunflower seeds, their sewing, and they would sit, chat, and wait for their men. No one dared to shoo them away because sometimes they would have to sit there until late at night. This time, as usual, the conversation started with the children. Then about the harvest, then, as usual, it turned to the men. Lucy, a woman with freckles, plain and therefore bitter, drawled, "Can you imagine if we lived in the city? The men are all intellectuals, no one drinks. Well, maybe a sip on a holiday, but they certainly don't raise their fists." The women laughed. "You and your stories. Men who don't drink. That's a good one." "No, but really. Remember last year, those city folk came, the summer people, rented a room from old Mrs. Gable. He didn't just not hit her, he never even said a harsh word to her. Always my dear, my love. And he didn't drink." Lena, Natalie's neighbor, waved her hand dismissively. "He was probably sick or something. And besides, we don't know, maybe he's a fool in some other way, greedy or something." "How is he greedy? He bought all the tasty stuff at the store. And she's not exactly a beauty queen," Natalie drawled. "Well, ladies, we have to put an end to this. But why don't we drink after payday and beat up our men when we get drunk?" All the women turned to her at once. "What are you looking at me like that for, Natalie? What, you've given us a good idea." Natalie suddenly smiled. "And you're not afraid?" Lucy said fearfully, "Ladies, are you crazy? It's always been like this in the country. The men get drunk after payday, they chase their wives around, and then they work like dogs for a month. So let them work. We're not stopping them from working. But times are different now, not like in the Middle Ages. So we need to change something. The time has come." The women huddled around Natalie and began to make a plan. "Oh, it's scary. What if they really lose their minds? Then we run." Natalie stood up. "Oh, look, here they come. Remember, today we try not to provoke them. Only if they start a fight." "Lucy, did you hear?" "Yes, I heard. I can't stand his drunk face. But okay, for the common good, I'll try." Natalie clapped her hands. "All right, ladies, to your places. Tomorrow we meet here at noon." "Oh, this is scary." They quickly dispersed to their homes to meet their breadwinners after they had celebrated payday. Stephen burst into the house, kicking the door open. "Food now." Natalie calmly nodded at the table. "It's ready. Eat." Stephen grunted. So the training has paid off. True, it only happened once a month. The rest of the time, he tried not to pick on his wife too much. He knew that she also worked and looked after the children and in general ran the house. But on these days, after talking with the men, listening to their stories about how they kept their wives on a tight leash, his chest would swell with pride. Stephen sat down and deliberately dropped his fork. The alcohol was clouding his mind. "Pick it up." Natalie looked at him in surprise. "What, are you so weak you can't pick up a fork?" Stephen slammed his fist on the table. "Pick it up. The guys say their wives practically bow to them when they come home. And here I have to repeat myself twice." Natalie snorted, took the milk pail and went out the door. Stephen immediately jumped up, tripped on a chair, which fell with a crash, and rushed after his wife. The frightened boys ran out of the bedroom. "Hey, you stop." Like a whirlwind, he flew off the porch, grabbed his wife by the sleeve and tore it. But it seemed to Stephen that he was not being menacing enough. He swung his arm back and met Natalie's gaze. His hand froze in midair, and that hesitation was enough for her to grab a pitchfork. Stephen backed away. "What are you? Hey, what are you doing?" But she was coming at him, looking him in the eye without blinking. The children were crying on the porch. Natalie swung and pinned him to the fence. The pitchfork was a small one, with only 3 tines, so Stephen's neck was neatly between them. "I told you if you want to drink with the guys on Payday, drink," she said. Stephen nodded. "I told you I wouldn't tolerate being beaten." Stephen nodded. "Did I give you any reason to behave like this?" Stephen shook his head. The drunkenness had vanished from his head in an instant, along with the sound of the tines sinking into the wooden fence. Natalie pulled out the pitchfork, threw it on the ground, and went to comfort the boys. "What are you crying for the whole village to hear? When you misbehave, Dad and I don't cry." The eldest, wiping his tears, asked, "So you were just playing?" "Of course." The next day, the men woke up at home with splitting headaches and were surprised to find their children next to them. "Dad, we're hungry." "Dad," Petey scratched his finger. "Dad." Mikey caught a mouse and is carrying it in his pocket. "Quiet, you lot. Where's your mother?" Almost every house heard this cry. "Mom's gone. She said she'll be back in the evening. You're on nanny duty today." The men were surprised, they clutched their heads, went to feed their children and found notes. They read them, their eyes widening, their eyebrows rising, and they ran outside. 20 minutes later, all those who had barely made it home yesterday had gathered on the street. "Yours said that too?" "And mine." "What the hell? What does it mean? Gone to celebrate Payday?" "Guys, it looks like they've decided to get revenge on us." "Confess, who was acting up at home yesterday?" Stephen coughed. Lucy's husband also looked away. "Dad, we're hungry." Gradually, they were surrounded by their children. The noise became unbearable. The men, clutching their heads again, pushed their little ones away. They had to give them something to eat to shut them up so their heads would finally stop splitting. They all planned to go and find their wives during the day, to teach them a lesson. But then Mikey's mouse escaped and attacked the cat, and the cat, in a fright, scratched little Vanya's face. Then Dasha decided to sew on her mother's sewing machine and accidentally sewed her finger to a piece of fabric, while her brother was trying to help her. Then Alexa and Nina decided they were real chefs while their dad was lying down with a wet towel on his forehead, and poured all the flour in the house and all the sugar into a bucket of water. And then, afraid they would get in trouble, they decided to hide the bucket, but they overturned it, right on the new carpet. Then the neighbor, old Mrs. Gable, was screaming, threatening to call the sheriff, because the little ones had not only gotten into her strawberry patch, but they had also ridden her goat, and the goat, in a fright, had run through all her flower beds, ruining almost the entire harvest. By evening, the men could barely crawl to the logs. Stephen collapsed and said, How did they manage to keep an eye on all this and still go to work?" Lucy's husband, who had 4 children, said, his eye twitching, "They're witches, nothing less." He looked with despair at his blue finger. While he was trying to take a 15-minute nap, his twin boys had decided to test a mousetrap on his finger to see how it worked. It worked. Cole had jumped almost to the ceiling. And his daughter, a good girl, had at that moment placed a frying pan with raw eggs on the sofa. She wanted to ask her dad why she had put them there, and they hadn't turned into a fried egg. Not only was there now a round, blue imprint of a frying pan on his back, but he also had to wash his shirt himself so that Lucy wouldn't see that he couldn't handle the children. "No, guys, I think we have to stop with these celebrations. Imagine if they started going out for a day in revenge every time. I wanted to go fishing today, but now I think I'd just be happy to sit down." The men watched with alarm as the children emerged from the gates. Some even flinched in fear. But the children, apparently, had already done all the mischief they could, and so they were playing quietly in the sand. Some, like Cole, were even afraid to breathe so as not to attract attention. "And I almost hit my Natasha yesterday." The men looked at Stephen in fear. "What for?" "I dropped my fork on the floor. I wanted her to pick it up." "You idiot. You couldn't pick it up yourself. I could, but something in my head just snapped after our talks. And you know what I think, guys? They're probably gossiping about us all day too. Imagine if they came back now, just like we were yesterday. A silence fell on the logs. Everyone was remembering how they had behaved yesterday, and how they had behaved on the last payday, and nothing good came to mind. Stephen, so what happened yesterday? Did you hit her? No, I didn't get the chance. She grabbed a pitchfork and pinned me to the fence. I've been thinking all night about who I'm living with. If it had been just a centimeter to the side, I wouldn't be here with you now. I'd be lying in a nice coffin. They were silent again. Someone said, "It seems to me that our wives have reached their limit." And so have we. Cole stood on the highest log. The wives are coming. What are we going to do? Stephen jumped up. I'm going home. Vanya, let's go home. Cole also quickly gathered his children and rushed home. 2 minutes later, there was no one on the logs. The women stopped. Well, ladies, home, sweet home. You know, let them drink. I'm even willing to put up with it if we can have a weekend like this every time. What? I'm for a weekend too. The pizza didn't work out, it was disgusting, but we had such a good time. We swam, we sunbathed. I haven't just lain in the sun like that in 200 years. Okay, let's go and surrender. Remember, no one feels guilty. We were just relaxing just like them. Lucy was the first to enter her house. She was scared before she opened the door, but she pulled herself together. Cole was setting the table. Oh, our mom is back. We missed you. He flew over and kissed his wife, which he hadn't done in 10 years for sure. Lucy almost fainted. Lucy, wash your hands. We're going to have dinner now. The boys and I cooked some potatoes, made a salad. The woman washed her hands and carefully sat down on a chair. Cole himself put everything on the plates, helped the youngest to hold his spoon correctly, and sat down next to his wife. Lucy, I was thinking, let's go to the city next weekend. We'll arrange with my mom to babysit the kids. Why? Well, we'll buy the kids some bicycles. We have the money and they seem to have nothing to do. And we'll get you some new dresses, shoes. You're always wearing something old. And you should be beautiful. Lucy, so that no one would see, pinched herself under the table. No, it hurt. So she wasn't dreaming. Natalie was observing almost the same picture at home. True, she wasn't talking to her husband. He would put one thing in front of her, then another. Natalie, don't be silent, okay? I know I'm a complete fool. I don't even know what came over me. You want me to stop drinking altogether? She looked at him slyly. And can you? Stephen jumped up. What, you don't believe me? A man's word. And then he faltered, looked at the smiling Natalie, and thought with despair that he would definitely not be able to sing now. A man's word. And he always kept his word because he had 2 boys growing up. In the morning, when the shepherd was gathering the cows in the field, the women met on the logs. Well, how did it go? Lucy blushed. I'm having a real honeymoon. I hope I don't have a 5th one at this rate. The women laughed. Mine promised me a new TV to watch my soap operas. And mine promised me. And mine, Natalie said lazily. Mine promised me he would never drink again. He gave his word as a man. The women whistled. Wow, you got him. And what, you're not going to let him? I didn't force him. He did it himself. I'm going now while the children are asleep. There's still a lot to do. Natalie's eyes sparkled and she hurried home. Lena drawled. A TV is cool, of course, but to stop drinking. What a fool I am. I didn't even know you could order that. I'll go and get at least a lock of wool from that mangy sheep. Lucy smiled. Well, if Stephen doesn't drink, maybe looking at him the others won't either. Oh, we're going to live well, ladies. The women moved through the yards. Their husbands were waiting for them at home. Sometimes good for nothing, but still the most beloved. And they didn't need any city folk. Their own were 100 times better. If you enjoyed the story, I hope you won't mind supporting me with a subscribe button. Don't forget about the comments. Did you like this story? Your support is very important to me and my channel. Stay with us.